It's still maybe not everything everyone hoped for. Definitely with the whole Tekken 8 Season 2 debacle, I think Capcom wanted to play it safer. And these are mostly safe changes, right?
There's not as many changes as I expected. Some of them are poorly thought out. It kind of just feels like they're just shuffling things around because they feel like they have to. I think that's what it is. I get the impression that Capcom thinks this game is basically in a completed state.
So in general, this patch, I'm gonna be honest, to me, this feels like Capcom was late to the assignment and just put something together at the last minute.
My patch note impressions. This is just very boring. This is what I was worried about from almost the very beginning, and my worry increased with each subsequent patch. This game came out in a very complete state, and it feels like Capcom has built a house of cards of intertwining mechanics that they are very hesitant to touch or tweak whatsoever. And I don't think we're changing the state of the game hardly at all with this patch, unfortunately. I do like the changes to parry. I think that is at least one big overarching step in the right direction. But in general, the level of these changes per character, some people got nothing. This is just not like an exciting patch.
So, how do we feel about Season 3 of Street Fighter 6? The idea in this video is to discuss the big balance patch, also the full season of DLC, because we already know the 4 new characters, and we even got to see a full major tournament on the new balance patch with CEO 2025, and I'm gonna leave you with some of the best matches on the screen while we have this discussion. So please let me know in the comments, what is your take, or what do you think about the current state of Street Fighter 6? Let's get into it. Let's actually start with the side of the balance changes and the new patch, and I do agree with, you know, some of the community takes. Like, I do feel like the patch is really boring. I was expecting a really big change in the game, especially in relationship to the system mechanics, because most of the time when you play Street Fighter 6, the game feels fair. You can't really criticize if the game feels like unfair because your character is too weak or whatever. Of course, there is weaker characters, but most of the time what carries you online and also what carries people in tournaments, it's the system mechanics. And when you see these matches, for example, of course these players are incredible. They are super high skill, and we cannot even get close to the way in which they understand the game, but that doesn't mean that they also don't get carried by a specific section of the game that they understand very well. That happens with any fighting game, and on Street Fighter 6 it's basically system mechanics. It's, you know, drive rush, it's the throws, you know, how to understand pressure in the corner. At the end of the day, most of the strongest options in the game are related to the core system mechanics, not to characters. And even though some characters are stronger than others, you can argue that almost any single character in the game can get good results in a tournament if you abuse the system mechanics at the best level and at the most optimal way that you can. So I think that we need to have a discussion about the state of the game because of this, because in the new patch almost all the changes are around characters. Some of them got nothing, other ones got very like unjustified nerfs, and the system mechanics, all the universal options are basically the same. So the game plays the same because the characters, to be strong, have to play the system mechanics. They don't necessarily play around their identity as a character. And the whole roster in Street Fighter 6 feels, as I said earlier in other videos, very homogenized. You know, each character plays the same. They have the same playstyle. You know, it's low forward drive rush, it's, you know, fireball drive rush, it's throw loops. So you have universal options that basically homogenize the gameplay of the entire roster, and I personally hate that. I don't like that at all. And even though I think the game is fair, it's very fair in terms of balancing, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily super fun. And it lacks variety. Like, it really feels like the game needs a new refreshing patch that at least has some shift in the general meta of the universal options around the system mechanics. So just to clarify, so people don't get insane in the comments, I'm not saying that Street Fighter 6 is a bad game or anything like that. It's arguably the best fighting game at the moment to play as an overall product. And also, I'm not saying that the state of balance of the game is bad. Not at all. The game is really fair if that is what you like to evaluate to say that a game has a good balanced state. Like, it is miles better than something like Tekken 8, but the game lacks variety. It plays relatively the same than what it did in 2023, the year that it came out. So that is my biggest complaint with the state of the balance for the game, and I would like it to be a little different. So that's what I want, you know, changes to drive rush, changes to drive impact, changes to throw loops, and every single option that has been so dominant in the last 2 years. And that is my main way of seeing the patch. I don't think that is bad at all. I actually love some changes for some characters that I like to play, like Terry and Jamie. and I'm playing Street Fighter 6 a little more at the moment, but I don't think that I'm gonna play it for a while after, you know, because the game just is the same than what it was when I bought it on release. And I would also like to give Capcom some credit in some changes. For example, Leshar in the Grand Finals of CO was playing Mai, and Falcons was able to reset the bracket basically in Grand Finals, and he changed to Terry as a counter pick to Akuma because of the buffs, and because, you know, Terry hits very hard, Akuma is a low health character, and it makes sense now. But for example, Terry on release was not strong at all enough to be picked as a counter pick even on tournament. So now he might not be the best first option, but for example, you can have it as a pocket pick in a tournament to fight against some specific characters, and that is what Leshar did, and that made him win the tournament. So that change, for example, was good, very significant, and made basically a whole change in an entire big tournament. But that's not something that we live as an audience for the game. You know, that is a change that basically the pro players can maybe experience at a very high level, but normal people like us, that doesn't really matter that much in comparison to, for example, changing the system mechanics overall. So that is my way of seeing it. Let me know in the comments what you think about the state of the balance in the game overall. And now let's move into the DLC. And now we discuss the DLC, and well, with the 4 picks for Season 3, I'm not mad or anything. I actually like Sagat a lot, I like Alex, and I love seeing C Viper back. For Ingrid, you know, it's just an obscure character getting a full redesign probably, so I'm not that excited about it, but I'm also not mad at all around it. But the problem to me about this season is actually that Sagat and Alex were also DLC on SF5, and it seems like fighting games are starting to, you know, make this train run around like, hey, this character sold very well on the last game, what if we just make them DLC again? And the same thing happened with Tekken 8, right? Like Fakun Ram, Armor King. So I don't know how to feel about this. I don't want personally like more modern fighting games that come in the next years to do this. Like, I want DLC to be a big surprise. Like, for example, C Viper, it's a good freaking DLC. You know, a character that a ton of people like, has not come back in a ton of time. And Ingrid also, you can argue, is good because it's a really obscure character that maybe no one really wants necessarily, but getting a new cool redesign might make the community love her. We don't know really, we have to wait for that. But again, is it weird? You know, it's just something that I'm thinking about, and I really don't want the future of fighting game DLC to be that. I don't want it to be the refurbished DLC of the last game that sold well with a new visual design. I really don't want it to be that. So maybe I'm like thinking too much about it, I don't know. But I don't like that trend. I really want DLC characters to be unique, special, and characters that maybe we don't see that often, and characters that were DLC on the last version of a game, for example, could maybe be a priority for the base roster if they sold really well and people played them a lot. You know, maybe that could be like a method to choose which characters end up in your game. I'm not super sure about it, but I really do feel like doing this thing in which you repeat DLC from an older game because it sold well and is very famous characters is not the best thing to do, man. Like, it makes all the seasons relatively easy to predict. It makes DLC a little less exciting, I would argue, depending on which characters they are, because for example, I don't know, if you repeat Akuma's DLC, no one cares, like everyone is just gonna bought it. But Sagat and Alex, I don't know. And again, Fakun Ram, I don't know. Armor King for sure. Armor King is more closer to the basically Akuma situation, but let me know what you think. I think that this is a very interesting discussion. This trend of repeating DLC and sold them again as the same as the older game, it's very, very weird. So it might need even his own video. Let me know in the comments what you think of the current state of Street Fighter 6. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and see you on the next one, guys.
Scenario. Whoa! Black shoot. That was reactions.
Yeah, that was the first time we've seen that in the set.
Now it's out there. Now that's another option. So NL's gonna have to look for that. Oh! Check the chat. Gotta watch it.
The perfect parry. Look at NL's drive gauge. Leshar can take advantage of the scenario right here to attack the drive gauge a little bit, make NL feel uncomfortable, go for the air, and that's a big heavy hit right there. Rising tackle. Don't do it, NL.
2 more hits. There it is. Oh, that would have been it.
It's actually one more hit now.
And now. Oh, the check. Is this enough? The level 2's gonna get built here. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Back to back to back. From Combo Breaker all the way to CEO.